Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the M3 Market Update. My name is Melody Wright, and I do this show to give you context about the information you're receiving out there in the residential and commercial real estate market. I do this because back during the GFC, back during the last housing crisis, I worked in the industry and very much was paying attention to every news story, alternative news stories, trying to understand what was going to happen in the housing market because the lives of the people of my company depended on it in terms of whether they were going to have a job in the future. And I can tell you that absolutely we were misled back then by the talking heads, by the industry experts, by the folks that claim to be economists, and by mainstream media. So that is why I think it's very important to be here talking to you during this very confusing time as you need to make a decision about whether holding on to an asset, about, a family home, and whether you are, unfortunately, there's been an adverse event in your life and you need to make some decisions. So I'm here to try to help everybody understand whether it's important to you from a residential property perspective or an investment to supplement, your family income. This is a very, very confusing time. So the goal of this show is honestly just to keep you updated on what's going on out there, so you can make the best decisions possible to arm you with tools. And so, welcome back. I've been away for a couple of weeks. I'm coming to you live from a 125-year-old farmhouse. Many of you guys know I moved down from Pittsburgh to Tennessee over the summer, spent some time in Miami, and then have been here in what was my sister's Airbnb, now my permanent residence. And so I've been moving over the last 2 weeks, but the move involved multiple households because, like the advice that I'm giving to some of you out there, we decided as a family to consolidate and move my mother in here with me. You guys, I've had people ask me, are you outside when you're doing these videos? I'm not. It's just a very old farmhouse, but it is amazing with some sturdy bones, and I feel very privileged to live here in Tennessee in this farmhouse. So welcome back, guys, or welcome back to me. I'm sorry I've been away. It was really a crazy time. I'm sure you guys can imagine. I have been very independent and for the last several years. This is going to be truly interesting. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about today is home prices. And I did a deep dive in the Substack this week. So this week's Substack is a combination of the deep dive on home prices and my visit to Raleigh. Now, home prices is something that, just based on my experience, I don't spend a ton of time obsessing about because I know the limitations of these series. I know how lagged some of them are. And so sometimes, maybe mistakenly, I don't spend enough time talking to you about it. And so that's what I want to do. And that was my goal in this week's Substack. And so what I did in the Substack, and for those of you, please check it out. This is actually in the free section, so you'll be able to see it. Is I put together, sort of laid a few series side by side. Now there's great folks. It's not like I had some brand new idea. A lot of people do this out there, but I really wanted to do it as well and add my cities, the 80 cities I track in that indices as well. And so I basically looked at existing home prices, which are tracked by the National Association of Realtors. They provide that information to Fred. I looked at the median listing price. That's also information that NAR provides to Fred. I looked at new home prices. Those are compiled through a survey of construction to the builders, and I show that in the Substack. And then I looked at my cities, the 80 cities, and I get that information from Redfin. Now, I had only been tracking those since June. But I basically went out over the last 16 months, think about going back to November. And believe it or not, guys, with all of this drama over the last year, home prices really have not moved materially. And for existing home price and median home prices, they kind of ticked up, but started coming back down in July. For Case-Shiller, which I spent a lot of time talking about that index and its limitations. We've talked about it here on the show, but I do a deep dive into that in the Substack, so check it out. But Case-Shiller and Redfin, they don't have the same methodology, but they use the same data set, which is deeds recorded at the county is part of what they use to get their information. And Redfin is very different in that. And so what's interesting is that for Redfin and Case-Shiller, you started to see month-over-month prices come down. Now, you may say, Melody, are you crazy? I read a lot of headlines about all-time highs just after Case-Shiller was announced. Well, guys, that was the seasonally adjusted data. And it's so non-seasonally adjusted, you can see we're starting to trend down. Now, I'm going to keep giving you both sets of numbers, but I do believe what's happening out there. Again, we know Case-Shiller, they use a 3-month moving average. Basically, this is what happened last fall. The information is officially for December, but it uses, October, November, December data plus, this is so important, there are delays at the county for recordings, okay? So what am I even talking about? So when you do that mortgage, essentially, or there's a sale, you record a deed at the county. And those deeds, when that happens, those counties can be delayed. I mean, I know counties that are delayed up to a year to record that deed. And so there's, on top of the fact that Case-Shiller is so far behind in terms of what we're looking at December data on February 27th, but it's also inherent to the series, there are additional delays. So I think this is why probably Redfin and Case-Shiller didn't show that move down into until November, where when you look at median listing price existent, they're looking at MLS data, are those big databases that these sales get entered into by professionals in the industry. So all of the ups and downs and the new home sales, if you look at over the last 16 months, like net 0.16 increase in prices, but they were the only series that actually had an uptick for our last data set. But I believe those prices have been revised down. I believe they will continue to be revised down. And if you remember, and I show this, the actual form in the Substack, where the builders put in that price, it's when they're writing that initial contract. And so it's not post concessions. And so that series looks like a little Rolling Hills series. But I believe when everything comes out on the wash, we're definitely going to see those ticking down as well. Home prices. I think that we have actually turned a corner, and I think that we are going to start to see a more solid trend. Now, will we have some ups and downs in the market over the next several months before we hit the summer? Sure, because everybody is going to be uncertain. Everybody is, there's still this crazy idea out there that these tiny rate moves are making huge differences. I'm seeing it when I look at the results from Zelman's home building survey, but the proof will be in the pudding, and we won't know. Honestly, I think we will not know exactly where we are until the spring selling season is done, probably May or June. But I think that these trends are becoming firmer and firmer, and no matter what happens out there with rates, 2024 is not going to be a great year for the housing market. Now, could something happen? Government intervention, fiscal stimulus, that would be the only thing that could save the housing market, where we again put money directly into middle America's pockets, not those that own these assets, not the top 20%, not the 10% who will benefit through lower rates. And I think, guys, enough damage has been done that no matter what happens, this path is very clear. and, take the uptick and increases in, traffic at food banks. When I talk about Raleigh in the Substack, I talk about their 26% increase of people coming to food banks. I had someone on X Twitter talk about the crazy nice cars they're seeing at the food bank lines in Palm Springs, California. We all have heard bits and pieces about the tent cities across the country. We're not hearing these stories in mainstream media, and there's a reason why. There's an election coming. And so the financial media has vested interest in making things look rosier than they are. It is truly sell side. They're trying to sell you something. So every time you read a financial media story, ask yourself, what are they trying to sell me here? And so, is there good reporting out there? I don't know. I haven't seen really good reporting in a long time, except for what we're seeing in Substacks and things like that. And this is a critical time. There is a lot at stake for everybody involved as we turn the corner of this election. So yes, you're going to see things like Biden coming out with these tax credits, over 2 years for $10,000 for first-time home buyers, $10,000 if you sell a starter home, which I guess a starter home just means it has to be under $300,000. But this is just like how he promised to, forgive student debt. Was he able to do a little bit of that even, after the Supreme Court case? Yes. And they're going to try to do these things, but I can tell you that before the election, Congress is not going to pass anything unless we're in an emergency situation, which they could. And then, all bets are off. But every day we're seeing layoffs. Every day we're seeing signs of distress out there. And every day mainstream media is working really, really hard to convince you otherwise. So this is an important time to be paying attention to what's going out there, especially if you have to make a decision in the next 12 months. And it will be different based on your market. That I can tell you. And so that's really why I've tried to track so many markets for you guys, so that you can get a sense of what's going in at least a market that is somewhere close to you. And if you have suggestions, please leave them in the comments. I will do my best. I'm one person. All of this moving, all of this transition that I've been going through the past 7 months, where I was doing the YouTube from a dining room table. It's now, I think, sort of slowing down, and I'm going to be able to sort of set roots, get everything set up, try to spend more time with you guys and giving you more information so you can be better informed. Okay, so quickly, I just want to talk about Raleigh. So I really would encourage everyone to watch my video with Travis on Raleigh. You're going to get a good idea of what we saw there, and then also in the Substack. But the thing about Raleigh is, for the past several years, all I heard about was the Apple headquarters that were coming there. That was announced in 2021. The latest updates say that, ground could break in 2026, 5 years later. And guys, I know realtors in the Raleigh area sold a lot of homes on the promise of that Apple headquarters and those 3,000 jobs, only 3,000 jobs that were coming. And what we know about these projects is typically that, they tend to underwhelm. They come in far smaller than what was originally imagined. But I can tell you that there are several suburbs of Raleigh that have built enough homes for all of those Apple employees if they ever come. And part of these plans was to build 700,000 square feet of commercial real estate. Well, guys, already Raleigh is struggling trying to figure out what to do with its already vacant commercial real estate. They look like they're being a bit proactive. They're going to turn some of that into life science labs. And what I will say about Raleigh in general is that you have those three big universities there, including Duke, and it has solid roots. It's not going anywhere, and I think that based on certain, because of the universities, because of the life science, that there are neighborhoods here in Raleigh that could fare better than other places in the country, especially they're actively trying to kind of manage the insurance and tax situation. We shall see. I think that a lot of states are looking at Florida and trying really hard not to be Florida. And so if if this local leadership can continue to kind of be proactive in this space, I think North Carolina is definitely going to be a place people will want to come. And so I don't think the markets may end up being as bad there as in some places. However, that doesn't, these far-flung suburbs, like the one that I talk about in this Substack called Onger, North Carolina, and I could be saying it incorrectly, but this was a little boomtown. This was a little Austin. I couldn't even believe my eyes. Very similar to Austin, where you would have, you go into a neighborhood of, say, 10 houses on a street adjacent to downtown, so not big lots, and one there would be in construction, one would be for sale, one you could tell was vacant, and then another construction. And this is exactly what Austin looked like. It's as if all residential turned into something that would be for sale or lease. And this has happened in many of the cities of our country as people, investors large and small started really going gangbusters betting on the housing market. So housing as a casino could not be more evident in that Raleigh market. And honestly, I'll talk about Wilmington, North Carolina in our next show. I'll be writing about that in the Substack over the next couple of weeks. So, what I can tell you for sure is that in Raleigh specifically, sales are down both month over month and year over year. And sales price month over month are coming down. So the change in number of homes sold year over year, negative 5.70%. I can tell you a lot of people in FinTwit would have never believed that was possible. Changes in homes sold month over month, down 8.62%. And so very much looking forward to existing home sales, because I want to see how Raleigh tracked against that average for this month, because Redfin is a little bit ahead. Okay guys, so in terms of occupancy there, let's talk about inventory. So inventory there has definitely started to creep up. And so I believe that we are going to see that continue moving forward, even as we know that the builders are actually it looks like they're strategically not listing on Realtor.com, which is a source of inventory for the Fred series. That is something I noticed at the end of last year, and I noticed when we were on the road. And so I think it's making those new build numbers inventory numbers look even a bit lower than they actually are, anywhere from 25 to 40%. I'm not kidding. That's what you see when you're out there on the road. And so we've got positive inventory growth month over month, but year over year, it's still a little bit negative, around 17%, but I don't really believe those numbers. Multifamily occupancy lower than the national average at 93.2, but they're on that chart in terms of being in the top, about the top 10 or top 12 for delivery for multifamily over the next year. So there are a lot of headwinds for Raleigh. And I believe that these suburbs, you could see already that some of the projects had been stopped. I believe that, some of these far-flung suburbs are going to look like deserted, kind of like when the animals all froze and there was still food in their stomachs. I think that we're going to see a lot of that in these excerpts. You could already see that projects were being abandoned. And so I fear more for these excerpts. Now, that doesn't mean downtown Raleigh and surrounding areas there aren't going to see trouble. I believe they will see trouble. We have just gone absolutely insane in terms of home prices. But I am more concerned about the excerpts. Okay, guys, a lot to talk to you about, obviously, and hope to do a second video this week. Also, will mention, I think my mic did not sound great. I think it might have been damaged as we were moving everything. So if so, I will figure that out for next week. Sorry, guys. I'm still trying to feel like a normal person. Okay, so inventory for sale increased about 0.50% week over week, month over month, 6.3%, and 14.24% year over year for my cities, compared to the 28 8-week average inventory was up 2.31%. Now, guys, it's super funny to me that Altos and other, folks are out there talking about increased inventory finally, but we know that this has been slowly happening. Now they're going to finally admit it. There's a lot of issues with their methodology, but I'll talk about that another day. So I'm just going to do kind of a shortened group of stats. Like I said, I have, now that I'm in one place, can work on the format of the show, probably do 2 shows a week, one just kind of recent data, news articles, things like that, and then one where we talk about the stats, but I try to put it in a nicer presentation format. And now that I actually have all my monitors, and it's going to be a little bit easier. Okay, so with top cities with largest percent increase in inventory week over week, this is for 225 through 33. Boston, Massachusetts up there at 7.12%. Encinitas, California at 6.32%. Carlsbad, California at 5.19%. Westchester County at 4.45%, and Johnson City at 4.23%, where I am. Top cities with largest percent increase in inventory month over month. This is February to March, same week. Rosemary Beach up at 42.86%. Encinitas up at 20%. Hoboken at 16.2%. Galveston, Texas at 15.83%, and Cape May at 15.53%. Okay, top cities with largest percent increase in inventory year over year. So this is going to be our new sort of top 10 that we're not just tracking from the start. And this is very interesting year over year in the spring selling season where we are. Not for everybody. It's still a little cold for some, but we know Florida for sure. This is their selling season. Sorry. Hoboken, New Jersey, 136.62%. Maybe this was a data issue on Realtor. I can't tell you for sure. Bakersfield, California, 67.42% increase year over year. Fort Myers, Florida, 57.45%. Galveston, Texas, 44.52%. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 37.29%. Denver, Colorado, 28.35%. San Ramon, 27.38%. Winter Garden, Florida, 26.92%. And Knoxville, Tennessee, 24.29%. And Dallas, Texas, 24.22%. Now, the 4 states that I'm really keeping an eye on, it doesn't mean that other states aren't important, like Arizona is not one of these, but these are the 4 states that I'm really seeing a lot of movement right now, and that's California, Florida, Tennessee, and Texas. So inventory change month over month for these states. California up at 6.58%, Florida 10.44%, Tennessee 3.93%, and Texas 9.03%. So as we are in the selling season for these southern states like Florida, seeing this inventory shows you that maybe there are people. Great article came out just looking at the number of homes listed with the word motivated in Florida. And really, it looked across the country, but Florida was number 1 for motivated sellers. And so I think probably as neighbors are seeing homes go for not, 2.5, maybe now down to 1.9, they are starting to get the message, hey, I need to get my house listed and out there, because costs in Florida are just skyrocketing, and there's so much investment down there. So much speculation that, this is truly where we're going to see, in my opinion, the blueprint for the country. Okay, year over year, these changes in these locations: California at 8.04%, Florida at 26.75% increase, Tennessee 17.06% increase, Texas 27.53%. And so Florida and Texas, you guys may have seen this show that Travis and I did where he said, I think Texas is going to be worse, and I said, I think the epicenter is Florida. To me, it's more about who to watch first. I think they're kind of neck and neck, but I believe Florida has just the way that market operates. We're going to see the true distress there. But he may be right. Who knows? And if he is, that's not... guys, I don't want anybody to lose equity in their home. That's not what I want. But I do want Americans to be able to afford shelter. And we have just gotten to a point where that's not possible. That's why there are so many people at food banks. That's, and even with immigration, homelessness is increasing, and there's been demographic studies of that, and it's not just the new immigrants. So, okay, quickly on single-family rental, top cities with the highest percent increase of single-family rental listings for that same week. Portsmouth, New Hampshire, I have no idea what's going on there. I tracked this for a follower, but I'm not sure what's happening. They're kind of all over the place. Somebody joked about it on the Substack, and I kind of agree with that. But Portsmouth was up at 39.39%. San Ramon, California, up at 18.92%. Oceanside up at 15.35%. Sevierville, Tennessee, up 11.76%. And Rosemary Beach up 7.14%. Now, the theory I think that a lot of us share out there is that as people can't rent out those short-term rentals, they're going to turn them to long-term rentals. When they can't sell them, they're going to turn them to long-term rentals. So keep that in mind as you're hearing these cities. And so the only other stat for that is I'm just going to look at the 28-week average, and here's the cities that had increases to that. Essentially, Portsmouth was up there at 63.82%. So very bizarre. If anybody has any idea, let me know. Boston, we saw them in the increase for listings as well, but they are up at 41.3% to their average. Phoenix, 36.94%. I just read one of the most disturbing, I don't think I'm going to say his name, Chris Arnaud, maybe he walks and does these Substacks, and he just did a recent visit to Phoenix, and it was hard to read, guys. I'll put that in the show notes. But Phoenix up at 36.94%, Scottsdale, Arizona at 27.23%, and El Cajon up at 28.27%. Quickly on commercial real estate, we just heard the recent announcement about this New York Community Bank deal, and I mean, it looks like a real, rug pull on existing shareholders. But I can, if we think about Lehman, if we think about Bear, if we think about when these things happen, there's always a lot of optimism. and so I don't believe this is going to save New York Community Bank. And I think actually what's going to happen, you're about to see a lot of lawsuits and a real mess. So I remember when, we got our equity injections, those lifelong lines tend to end up being more problematic later down the line. So we will keep our eyes on that. Some other articles I posted in the Substack on commercial real estate is about, these Macy's closings, their anchor stores in mini malls. This is going to be very impactful to commercial mortgage-backed securities. And then, special servicing, and this is where people essentially have to turn over the loan because they're in default. Those trends are just going up. Now, we're seeing what we saw a lot last year, and we're going to continue to see for some time, is some strategic handing the keys over, forcing people into conversations and modifications. But then these things just start to snowball. And so the commercial real estate issue is going to be a multi-year issue. And I still hear so few people talking about what is the real solution. No matter how many people come back to work, we have just overbuilt in these cities, and we need to start thoughtfully planning about what to do with these empty buildings. If not, what's happening in Phoenix, what's happening in San Francisco, what's happening in New York is going to happen to all of our cities. And really, I believe it's already started. We just haven't heard enough about it. Once you have all that vacancy invites crime. At the same time that your tax base is being eroded because people aren't paying tax because they're no longer in those buildings. And these things can take a long time to really show because they can say occupied, but somebody moved out. They're just waiting for the lease to expire. So, the one thing of all my research on Raleigh that I really appreciated was the fact that they put together a task team that went off to Boston, and they're really trying to work on figuring out, okay, what can we do with this commercial real estate? They're trying to be proactive, and I got to be honest, and I'm sure other groups like this exist out there in these other cities, but I haven't seen a lot of it. And so one of the reasons I'm giving Raleigh a little bit a better grade is because they are trying to be a bit proactive. But don't get me wrong, home prices are going to be impacted there. I just see a bit of a better future in terms for Raleigh, or a better ability to kind of weather what's ahead. But as we also see admissions to colleges come down, they could be impacted in ways that we haven't even started to consider. And so I still want to see that what's really going to happen to college admissions this year. We've seen, because they changed the FAFSA, that it seems like real chaos right now, and I'll try to link that article in the show notes as well. So okay, but what I would say is that no city, hardly any city, maybe some neighborhoods, are really going to escape, in my opinion, what's ahead. And this, of course, is going to take some time to play out. But where I'm seeing softness in home prices, I believe that we are on a trend, and I believe barring any fiscal stimulus from the government, direct transfers into consumers, that it's not going to stop the train. One last thing, posted on X Twitter yesterday, a breakdown of the new FHA 90 plus delinquency and the reasons for that delinquency. And you can see unemployment as a reason ticking up, I would say higher than what we're seeing in our actual unemployment rate. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We've talked about before, we'll talk about it again. But another one of the reasons that's showing a massive increase is the no contact. And the no contact is a combination of borrowers who feel shame about being default and investors who know they are never going to try to mod. They're going to walk away. And that was a very significant increase quarter over quarter. And so I believe we have kind of made the turn. We're passing over the inflection point, and we're getting into a real groove on home prices and kind of trajectory for the housing market that where no one is going to be able to argue. But I think that inventory myth is so important to the election cycle, so important, because they don't know how to solve the real problem they have out there. And so they need easy problems to solve. So building affordable housing is an easy solution for them. The problem is as we've seen, every time the government gets involved, things just get more and more costly. But here, the fundamentals are really weighing everything down, and I don't believe that there's anything that really can change this path except for an exogenous event. And so anyway, okay guys, sorry for the long absence. I know you hear me say sorry a lot about these types of things, but I really am trying to kind of get rooted here, get things set up so I can be more consistent in the information that I'm bringing to you. And I will try to stop apologizing. So sorry for long, but I just did it again. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm sure I didn't say half of what I wanted to say today, but hope to do another quick show at the end of this week. I hope that you're having a good day out there, and thanks again. I truly appreciate all the support. If you need to get in contact me, at me on Twitter, X Twitter, that's the easiest way, M3_Melody, MELODY. You can also reach me here in the comments section, M3 Melody YouTube, and then M3 Melody Substack. Really would encourage you guys to read that. The introductions are free, and I put a lot of meat in there. So thanks again for all the support, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.